What's up, YouTube? It's Anthony Castillo with you guys. So I wanted to get on this one and give you guys a little bit of a rundown. A lot of my other videos, if you guys were kind of like catching up with it, recognizing some of its trends, some of its value, ideas and concepts. A lot of it's dark. I know a lot of it's very, very dark. And I remember in energy, when we talk about energy, there's lots of energy between different types of polarity between, the yin and the yang in the video I talked about. But I really wanted to hit this one as far as just recognizing where we're at in terms of time and space and time, and just with the universe. So this one specifically, I want to be able to really hone into the idea that as we transition, right? I know liminal transitions, bio thresholds are taking us in that direction. Bio thresholds, take for instance chemistry. Chemically, we're all built up of some kind of substance, and some of us are all built of the same substance. Some of us have different types of higher levels of deficiencies, and some of us have higher levels of balanced energies. So, and that has to do a lot with just recognizing what's in our bodies, right? Recognizing what we eat, drink, what we do, what we consume, what we watch on a day-to-day basis. But this one right here, I wanted to really focus on the idea of focus. So what does that mean, right? Spiritual focus. Well, think about focus, right? So some of us lose our focus in many things, right? We lose our focus on what are we trying to accomplish, whether we're being persistent, whether we're actually accomplishing the things that we want to accomplish, right? Some of us get setbacks. Some of those setbacks are very, very intense. For me, I've had some very medical conditions. I've had some very intense setbacks with other people. When I was on the verge of just, succeeding, I remember one time when I used to work at a nursing home. I remember one of the nurses, unfortunately, had tried to do something to me. And I know that's scary to think about, but I just remember that memory so vividly that, in her mind, she thought she could do anything she wanted to do with me, basically, And I know that sounds frightening, and I don't want this to be a dark video, I kind of want to bring this into the light, get out of the energy of something that's been there for too long. But it's true. I remember the nursing home. I remember there was a nurse that was thinking that she can do whatever she wanted with me. Now, I have family members that are nurses. I have family member, I've worked in the nursing field as well myself, especially at the hospital, like I like to reference. But anyways, spiritual focus. What does that mean? Let's put our focus in the places that we need to remember, and remember how we got out of it, right? How we came out of it, what we did in the process of focusing our mind towards the other stuff, because sometimes the focus becomes too detrimental, right? At a state where maybe we're not in control of the chemicals that are in our body, right? Some of us are bombarded by so many different types of conditions that are probably hindering us to get out of that focus of but if you look at just do a lot of research on people overcoming certain conditions, it's amazing how the body is resilient enough to get out of something, to not dwell in something, right? And that's kind of the primary purpose here, is because whatever we're going through, I'm often very inspired by people that have had only one leg, two legs, either from a very complicated situation, even just testimonies and stories about people that went through some very intense traumatic events, like shark attacks, stuff like that, but that didn't stop them. It didn't stop them from, no matter how long it took, it didn't stop them from either getting fit, getting better, eating right, focusing their mind on certain things that could get them better, and it takes a lot, it takes a lot of grit, and a lot of emotional resilience, because even as we look at ourselves, there's people out there that unfortunately haven't been through that too intensely, maybe, or feel like they're losing hope. You know what I mean? They're losing hope. For me, if I had a family of my own, I know some of you are following my story, but if I had family of my own, every day I would think about, I would do it for them. Do it for them. If it's like, and I'm not talking about like, mom and dad, brothers, sisters, I love them very much, but I'm talking about my family, like my own sacred family. Something that if you guys know, I'm not married, but my own sacred family is something that I would do for myself. I would do it for them, I mean. Like, and I know that's hard, or a lot of people may resist against it because it's like, you can't do that, or, and I don't know who would want to say that, but people have told me that, if I'm being honest. But spiritual focus, how do we focus our attention to something new and different? Because we're in the new coming years are coming ahead of us. And if we're still stuck in a place, remember my other video about stuck, and it was really interesting. I actually remembered the word stuck and where it came from, because the word stuck actually is related to the word fixed. And if you guys learned anything about neuroscience, psychology, of certain types of audios out there, but fixed mindset is something that's fixed and stuck on a belief or a programmed idea, or programmed, just something that a person just came up, or was always just inclined to always just repeat a pattern, right? And I'm not talking obvious patterns that are like, let's say a person that just like every weekend they drink, you know what I mean? I know I'm talking about a communication pattern. I'm talking about an emotional pattern. I'm talking about something more deeper than that. Anyways, I wanted to focus on this idea of just spiritual focus. I know it's simple. We should focus, as we focus and put our attention to the things that we want in our lives to get better, even if people come against it, there are going to be others, right? Right? 3 persons, there people are waiting for it to see it, to believe it. So when that's there, that's like your way that the universe is telling you to hurry up and move, because that's getting deeper. It's just getting deeper. We don't know where it's going. There's always a polar opposite of energies, right? One energy is going to go in this direction, one energy is going to keep going in this direction. It's inevitable, right? In that nursing home, I learned a lot. Unfortunately, like I said, in medical conditions, the decline of something is often just rapidly at paces that we don't recognize, and sometimes when we start recognizing it, it's getting there, right? I myself, I'm a pretty youthful person, still young, vibrant, hopefully many years ahead of me. I get to live and, see things that I want to see, right? Just hopefully. But we need to shift our focus, because the more we keep focusing on the wrong direction, the more we're going to keep getting. And if we don't focus on the other direction, let's say, you really want to succeed in life. Someone wants to succeed and wants to stop living for someone else and start living for themselves, right? And anyways, I wanted to leave you with that one. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Just spiritual focus. I know there's great books out there. The Power of Now, Focus. There's so simple concepts that when we understand the concept, it's often relatable to understanding it more, right? Now, biblical sense, that's complicated. That's very complex. That's something that I didn't want to approach because it's just too much. You got relatability, you got various texts, and you got to deal with certain types of cross-referencing, and is that within content? Oh, a lot of different stuff. But anyways, I want to leave you with that. Hopefully that makes sense. Remember to subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.